Ladies and gentlemen, rebel scum and loyal to the Empire, this is Sith Talk, the only show that talks all things Star Wars movies, Star Wars TV, Star Wars books, not so recently, but we will eventually when I catch up. But we talk about everything Star Wars when we can. I'm your host, Zach Christman, aka the Lord of Lore, and joining me, as always, is Brandon. Brandon, how's everything going?
It's going, man. It is going for sure. I'm just going to knock my camera over real quick while we do that. So, we're off to a swimming start.
Right. That's okay because, I think we're still figuring out exactly video. I'll definitely get lighting situation a little bit better. I'm already gonna have to fix something a little bit because it's bothering me, but we will talk Star Wars. So, how have you been?
I'm good, man. I'm Star Warsing the Crystal Crown right now. So, probably not a book that you're going to venture to because it's acolyte stuff. So,
don't knock that because I might, and if you give it a positive review, I might check it out.
It's going to depend on how it lands. I'll say this as a non-spoiler tease for people. It's Star Wars does the Hunger Games, it feels like.
Okay.
So it's not. It's gonna have to stick the landing. I've got about 100 pages left or so, so we've got time for it to do its thing. But I really enjoyed Wayseeker, so that's one thing acolyte related that I think is worth everybody's time. So we'll see. It's Tessa Groton, and she does good work, and so it's very well written. I just don't know really what direction they're going with the end, which is sometimes a good thing. Sometimes it's good to not have an idea of what's going to happen ahead of the story. There's so many things we can just kind of predict with these stories because we've seen so many different kinds of them. And it's nice to read something and really not know how it's going to end. Because to some extent you don't really know who the antagonists are in the book necessarily, and that makes it a little more challenging to wrap your head around. But not in a bad way at all. So I
do like the idea of that.
Yeah, it's different. Tessa Groton doesn't do things that are just regular. She doesn't do things just because that's the way that they've been done before, which I really like about her writing. So that's really good. And then, do you keep up with the Lego stuff?
So I've heard about that, and actually, it's yes, I do. In short, yes, but I'm always late to it. So I caught up with the last Lego stuff a couple months ago, and now I'm getting I've heard about everything that's going on with a certain Sith Lord that I love, and I will be checking it out. It might even be as soon as tonight, just because tonight just happens to be a day that I don't plan on doing anything after this. So I don't know. You want to get into that little piece? Talk about it. It's okay. It's Legos. I'm okay if you want to talk about it openly because it's not going to bother me.
I might actually rewatch it tonight myself. No,
those Legos movies have a lot of heart, though. I mean, they do, man. They're surprising.
Yeah, and I think they obviously poke fun at Star Wars and stuff like that, and there's those goofy parts. So I guess I'll do some very minor spoilers just to kind of give people a hint of some of the humor.
Sorry, putting on
pieces of the past is basically they have builders and they have I don't remember what they call the Sith Lords, but basically the Jedi are builders and then the Sith are the other side. And in the previous installment, in the original Pieces of the Past, they changed the galaxy, so everything is backwards now. So you've got Rose Tico as a Sith Lord and stuff like that, right? And
it's really cool. I thought it was fun. That's where you put the multiverse in Star Wars, in the Lego movie.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
And so in this one, they have jokes that, the Death Star, they're call it the Battle Ball, which is pretty funny. Just different stuff like that. There, of course, is the return of Darth Jar Jar. I won't say the General Grievous would call them improvements that he's undergone. But that's definitely worth checking out. What else is there? You get a light side Asajj Ventress, which is pretty cool. So they just have a lot of characters in there, and there's just a lot of goofiness, and I like the Legos with like the characters that we know. But what I really like about the Lego characters is how they make it feel like somebody's just playing with their Legos, right? And they
Yeah.
create these new characters the way that we would with our action figures and our Legos when we were kids. And that really makes it endearing and exciting. So
Indira, I'm just kidding.
no Indira. There is no Acolyte content in Pieces of the Past. So yeah, it's
Those
definitely
are
worth checking out.
surprisingly fun. They really are. Like the Lego stuff is something that we've never actually talked. I don't think we have. We've like
No, not
might have
really.
mentioned it over text. But if for anybody listening, like yeah, absolutely. If you have not like, I'm not somebody who can watch all animation. I love DC Comics, and DC has a great animated movie. Like they do animation the way I want Star Wars to do animation. But I don't always watch it because like I'm not going to watch the Superman Adventures show, and I've heard it's great. It's just not for me. I don't know why, but I can't get there. The Lego stuff is truly something special. It's light, it's fun, and honestly, it's like kind of one of those things where if you want to get the vibe of it, the only thing I can hear is truly wonderful, the mind of a child. Like that's kind
Yeah,
of what it is. It's
yeah,
like it's fun to be on.
yeah, and that's the thing too. Like it doesn't try to reinvent Star Wars. It's just fun, and that's okay. We're allowed to just have fun watching Star Wars.
So, do you want to get into like something that might not be as fun to talk about before we get in back into fun talk about thingies?
Yeah,
All of which
go
is not
for it.
English.
We know we don't do the talking here. We
Yeah, so with that, we're talking about the James Mangold Paramount deal that's going through. James Mangold has essentially signed a deal with Paramount Pictures. Now, there's a lot going around with Paramount Pictures right now. They've been shopped around. Um, they've been people have been shopping them for a while. They've been on the verge of like total bankruptcy, and there's a lot going on. But can you hear me?
yeah you're
Okay.
good.
There's a lot going on, but essentially it's not looking good for James Mangold being a part of Dawn of the Jedi. Let me pull that up article right now. So this is the MSN, and it just says Skydance owned Paramount Pictures has signed an overall deal with James Mangold, the Oscar-nominated filmmaker behind Logan. The studio, which made the announcement Tuesday, is already in business with the writer-director, having picked up a biker thriller titled High Side in August after winning the project. Details on the deal were scarce, but the studio heads are enthusiastic about the new partnership. James Mangold is one of the most talented filmmakers working with us today, and we could not be more. It's all just jargon, but essentially, so this is saying Mangold was developing. It's saying was in past tense. Was
Yeah, that's
developing
worrying.
the Star. That's the problem. Mangold was developing the Star Wars movie Dawn of the Jedi for Lucasfilm, which was to have explored the origins of the Force, and he was developing a feature for DC Studios centered around on the character Swamp Thing. Now, I'm a DC guy. I'm not too worried about this whole Swamp Thing right now when it comes to the DCN because James Gunn is just kind of waiting for scripts to be perfect. Doesn't really care when they happen. That's at least what he's claimed.
Yeah.
And so far so good. But with Lucasfilm, yeah, this doesn't look good, and I don't know what else to say that I haven't already said. And I don't. All I know is the only thing I can say is people have held my small painting company that only people in this area know. People have held us to a way higher standard than CEOs are being held at these movie studios and corporations. Like, bro, we can just straight up get away with having like I'm at this point I'm like wondering, is there some kind of tax write-off to not having movies? Because I just don't understand what, and I know there is, but that's not why they're doing it, but it's just like, what is happening? Because like if you remember, man, it was really bad 2 years ago when we announced this, and we were all talking with I think it was like me, you, and Lindsay the day that the all these announcements came out, And we were all just trying to say, let's be positive, because there's no way after years, at that point, it was years and years of films being announced and being canceled. And we thought there's no way anybody could continue to do this, especially with James Mangold. And I'm not saying that they're continuing to do this, but it's a problem. It doesn't look good, and it doesn't give trust.
Yeah, and honestly, if I remember correctly, it was you in particular saying they're not going to announce James Mangold without having this thing locked down. And what I don't understand, and this is a genuine, like, I don't understand it now, and using that phrase as an attack at Lucasfilm. I don't understand how these other studios, Netflix and Paramount, are able to sign these directors to multi-movie deals like this that then it keeps. And Lucasfilm has, I don't know, handshake agreements going on. It's almost like that's how they're running the business. And while I would love for that to be the way that businesses run nowadays, it's not. It's just not.
Meanwhile, Sean Levy had Deadpool and Wolverine come out last year. Remember this, and this is something that at this point, like, I don't really want to complain about Kathleen Kennedy forever. Like, I think that ship is no, I can't say that ship is like gonna sail, because I said last year that she was leaving, and she was. There were reports saying she was going, and now it's like radio silent. So I don't know if she's actually leaving. I don't believe any. I don't know what's going on with. She has to have some awesome stuff on Bob Iger, because I just don't get it.
How? Yeah.
Well, but like, I just want everybody listening to realize, so that we're not just continuing to beat it over your head, but just remember this with Star Wars. Kathleen Kennedy, as long as she is still in Star Wars, this is the finality of it. Kathleen Kennedy's biggest mistake in Star Wars is the reactionary directors. I'm going to take the hottest director and I'm going to get them in as soon as possible. Dude, I'm telling you, like, how are you going to flip on James Mangold? Like, there's no world. But like Sean Levy, who is a equally great director in a completely different way, how did Sean Levy just, like, he didn't have a script, man. He just, like, they shopped him. He was in the Disney family, and they said, yeah, do you want to do Star Wars? Of course I want to do Star Wars. I'm a nerd. I just made Deadpool and Wolverine. Absolutely, I'll do it. How much you paying me? Shit. All right, I'll write a script tomorrow.
Yeah.
That movie
I would have done it for free.
And they're giving him Gosling. They're giving, I mean, no, Ryan ain't cheap. And Ryan wants to play a Star Wars character, but Ryan ain't cheap. Not for Star Wars. Ryan's going to bank out on this. And he should, because he's Ryan Gosling. But it's like, Kathleen, as long as Kathleen Kennedy is in Lucasfilm, we are going to get the most reactionary, algorithm-based Star Wars. And I'm not saying it's not going to be good, but it's just not, you're not going to get these weird pockets. I just don't think we're going to get anything like Dawn of the Jedi, which is like, it's too much of a commitment to her. And I don't know why. I don't know why when you told stories like Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Like, I think Disney's afraid to commit on Origin. I think Lucasfilm's afraid to commit on anything in Star Wars, and that's why it's like really killing my vibe for Star Wars, because they're still playing it safe with these things. They don't want to make an origin of the Force because they don't want to live with it if the movie's trash. That's why they're doing it. That's why they don't touch the Sith. Point. That's why the Acolyte was a complete botch, because Leslie Headland had this idea that says the Sith Lords are the main characters. And what happened? We already know. It doesn't matter if it was Dave Filoni, Kathleen Kennedy, whoever the rumors were. We knew at the last second they pulled out and said, nope, we need to lighten this up. We need to make this a Jedi-based story. That's what happened to the Acolyte. This continues to happen. It's even though the High Republic is great, that's why there's not hardly any mentions of the Sith until whatever book maybe you might have read. But there's no mentions. They're afraid to commit, bro. And I'm not trying to be like that guy, but it's just it is fucking insane at this point how you have an entire subsect of fan base that you're just allowing to keep boiling over and listening to probably not the best versions of themselves of this fandom, because this fandom, what once used to be this beautiful place, it's a gutter, because there's just like so many people who are like, why are you not doing this? And they don't know what to do with the anger, and they're saying shit that like probably isn't respectful, right, good, whatever. But at the end of the day, it's like, dude, what is happening? Why can't we at least get one new Sith Lord in 15 years that isn't in a comic book or a book? You've bought it for this long. Like, what is the problem? Who is afraid to commit? Is Dave Filoni back there hitting them with all these George lingo and causing problems? Because I've heard rumors about that too. I've heard Dave is a little bit of a bookkeeper, gatekeeper, and I'm just wondering what is going on over there. Like, I'm wondering.
Yeah.
That's as
so
nice as I can put it. I'm sorry, guys.
No, I think you have a really good point, and this is maybe a point you haven't brought up in your critiques in the past of like
I'm not as angry. I'm well past that. I'm in acceptance.
Well, like, I think in the past we've talked about how like the problem is the directors, right? And the directors coming and going and everything like that. What I'm hearing you say is that that is just a symptom of the bigger disease, right? And I think, you know, if Mangold is not happening, then is the Rey movie happening? We already kind of know the Filoni movie is gonna kind of turn into just Ahsoka season 2 or whatever. Like, it doesn't seem like that is progressing forward because of Mando and Grogu. And like we said for the longest time, like the easiest solution for them is to just shut the hell up. Just shut the hell up and don't tell us anything until you have the movie cut, until you're ready to release a trailer.
At least pre-production at this point.
At the very
least
minimum.
Pre-production.
Like the Starfighter thing, like it's still hard for me to believe that that movie's actually coming out, you know? And like I understand that movie is coming out and I'm excited for it, and I think it'll be a good time, and I don't think I've ever watched a Ryan Gosling movie where I didn't actually, you know, enjoy it, you know, the character
and
that
Sean
he plays.
Levy is somebody you need to watch, like, if you haven't.
Yeah, no, and
he's
I
great.
was just about to say he's a great director and writer and everything. It comes back to that thing of like, at what point do, one, the standards have to increase, and two, do you start to really look and see and ask yourself, like, why is this happening again and again? You know, there has to be something happening behind the scenes, whether it's Dave being a gatekeeper or somehow, you know, a less than supportive work environment or whatever, to where these directors are so willing to go sign these deals, you know, and so willing to break their word on what they were going to make, you know, like it's a symptom of the larger disease, and it's really starting to become worrisome when the first movie that you're releasing in 8 years is a sequel to a TV show. That, as excited as I am for Mando and Grogu and to be back in the theaters and seeing a Star Wars movie, that's not a good look, you know? And maybe it's a Disney thing overall, you know? Because Disney itself has not put out a lot of great movies of late. Like, name a Disney movie that wasn't a sequel that you've watched lately.
Yeah, but they are on their upturn to making money again. And that's the part.
True.
That's the part that's like making me lose my utter mind. And I think that's like you don't want angry people in your fandom, then just communicate. Like, just communicate. That's all it is. Like, I think,
honestly,
like, even
no,
by now.
No.
Fair, but what I'm saying is, like, what I'm trying to say is like, what? Yeah, no, you're right. They need to stop communicating. But what I'm trying to say is, what I don't understand is Disney these last couple of years since Chapek's come out, they have done a completely rebrand with Marvel. They've completely rebranded their Disney mainframe, and they've done a good job. They're making deals all left and right with ESPN, whether I like it or not, and WWE. Like, they are making money. Yeah. Like, whatever you want to say, they're hell-bent on making money. When Bob Iger came back, he was simply back to right the ship. So where my confusion goes is, like, why did we beat Kevin Feige's ass when he was still successful coming off of Endgame? Why did we rip him a new one for putting out too much shit that the last CEO asked him to do, and then he immediately has corrected the ship? Now, yeah, Captain America's not the newest Captain America was not received well critically, and box office, it didn't do great. Thunderbolts was received great, did shitty in the box office, but everybody knows that all you have to do is get to Doomsday. Doomsday is the most anticipated movie in the universe right now. And it looks like the crowd, the fandom, all of this is immediately going back to these excitement of like what Marvel is. So Marvel's had failures and they've been able to rebrand themselves in about a year and a half. Meanwhile, Lucasfilm has been sitting here since 2019, coming off of the Rise of Skywalker and saying, yeah, we're going to take our time planning movies. We're just going to, and I said, good, go for it. Like, but you've had fucking 6 years. I mean, like, it ain't going to take me long to plan a timeline. And I'm not a film director. Like, at least just like, I just don't get it. Like, I don't understand why the expectation for the other subsects and even Pixar is so much different than Lucasfilm.
So I'm going to make a college football analogy here because that's my other major fandom. And
Great.
As you guys can see, I'm a big Florida State fan. And last year we went 2-10, right? Unacceptable standards at one of the top universities in the country. The head coach got to stay. Everybody else got cleared out. The players, the coaches, everybody was gone because they quit on the team. And Coach Norvell was the only one that didn't quit on that team. And now we got a ranked, pretty good team that's threatening for the playoffs, right? Beat Alabama in the first game in amazing fashion. That's what needs to happen at Lucasfilm. Whatever is happening.
Even if that means Dave Filoni?
If Dave Filoni is the reason that this stuff is happening, yes.
Because I think it's a little bit the truth is always somewhere in the center. I'm blaming Kathleen because she's at the head of the ship, and I'm not one of those servicemen who's like, I'm in the service industry, so you better do what I need. I really try to keep that at bay. I'm still human. I make mistakes. But it gets to a point where my standards for a company that, if we're lucky this year, will hit our $1 million mark. Now, we don't take that. That is what the company literally makes. But we're just trying to make one, and we've been around for 25 years. Not 25 million years, sorry.
We made 25 million. We're trying to just make one now.
I've been painting a roof all day. My brain's fried. But all that to say, it's just like it gets to a point where you're like, man, do all of the little guys just pay for the big guy stuff? Like, what's going on here? Because it's like, how am I supposed to get, and I'm not trying to say this in a mean way, but like, how am I actually supposed to get excited about Star Wars? You tell me.
That's the thing.
What am I supposed to do? Because I love the High Republic, and I still haven't read those books yet. And it's hard for me. I'm trying.
Well, and, going back to my analogy, it's like you have to clear everybody out. You have to get a fresh start in order for that to happen. And, personally, I want Filoni to stay around. I'm biased in that. I will admit that. But if he is going around and saying like, no, we can't do this because this isn't how George did it, that's not Star Wars anymore. Star Wars isn't George's anymore, and I don't think they realize that. I think they're holding it in too much reverence. And I don't mean this in a way that like George needs to pass away or anything like that. But like, you got to get George gone. It's time to move on.
You got to move on from George. Because George sold on us, guys. Like, and that's not to be mad at George. Like,
no,
George sold his company, guys. He moved on. He had a financial transaction that was worth out our excitement, and he took it. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but
no,
like all these arguments that George's way or highway is like, no, man, George walked. Anyway,
well, and let's remember too that like everybody wanted to do it George's way. George made a ton of mistakes. Luke and Leia make out in Empire Strikes Back. There's, people argued about the prequels for however long until the sequels came out. Like, let's not pretend, that everything was peachy keen with George Lucas there just because of the flowers that he does deserve, right? He does deserve that recognition as one of the most influential storytellers of all time. But we're not going to get another George if we don't open up the floodgates to letting new ways arise, Like the theme of the Jedi is not Kylo Ren's let the past die, kill it if you have to, but it's damn time to do it, man. It's let the past die, Like you mentioned The Acolyte, and of course, both of us hate that show, but I think we have a completely different opinion on that show if Dave Filoni doesn't get his fingers in there and say, like, no, because Star Wars focuses on the good guys, and you have to focus on the Jedi, right? Completely different story. Does it turn out well? Who knows? We can't predict that, right? But it opens up a different opportunity. So I guess the biggest thing is, like, how do they change going forward? And how do they
Commit.
inspire that confidence? That's
Commit
the
to the
thing.
fucking story, man. Write an
But the
awesome
problem
story and
is,
commit.
I think that they think they are. That's the problem, right? Like, I always,
Oh boy. It
as
feels
a
like
teacher,
simulation theory. They think they are.
as a teacher, right? Like, for me, I will gladly take a very low level struggling student who is aware that they struggle and aware of what their struggles are,
Mm-hmm.
over an extremely talented student who's going to get me better scores and make me look better, who has no concept of the fact that they're flawed.
That's true.
I think Lucasfilm doesn't think they're doing anything wrong, and that's concerning.
And this
That's
hits
really
me,
concerning.
and we might be looking at maybe Bob Iger cares more about the brand's like stability right now, that he doesn't want to tell the big stories because maybe they are just making too much money on the merch still. I can't see that, but like honestly, like I might have to look into this a lot deeper and like look at how much, and it won't be for this show, but I'd love to I might do some digging and just try and figure out like how much has Lucasfilm made in profits and revenue in the last 5 to 6 years, because I think that points the story, because it's always where the money is. Wherever that money is,
Yeah,
or lack thereof, for Disney, which is one of the biggest companies, that's where the truth is, in my opinion, when it comes to Lucasfilm.
I hear what you're saying. My argument would be The Force Awakens made $2 billion. So are you gonna give up making $2 billion, $1 billion on one movie because you're making merch? Like, that to me is very apples to oranges.
But when you don't come out with anything, you release things or you announce things and you cancel them, you can't blame a guy like me for saying, I'm going to go look at the numbers because none of this makes sense. And you haven't told me why this doesn't make sense, but it doesn't make sense. That's
I
where
100%
it
hear where you're
is.
coming from. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's, I don't know, man. Like, and then I think about, I know we don't want to turn this into a doom and dreary
For sure.
podcast, but what happens if Mando and Grogu comes out and doesn't make good money? What happens if Starfighter is a bomb at the box office?
I mean, we're seeing box office decline. I mean, I don't know what kind of, like, this turns into more of a movie conversation for me than a Star Wars conversation, because we're seeing a box office decline. Movie theaters aren't dead, but the general consumption is, you have to make a movie that we want to see, that we're all super excited. The buzz has to be great for it to hit them $1 billion marks anymore. It's a little bit hard. It's harder than it was to hit $1 billion before 2020. In 2020, by the end of 20 or before COVID, everybody was like, the internet was like, if it didn't make $1 billion, it was a flop. And we're like, what are you talking about? It made 600. It was ridiculous. But all that to say is, like, I don't understand, because you're saying you are correct. $2 billion is a lot of money. It doesn't matter who you are. Disney, they need that back. There's a $40 billion box deal they're still paying off. But like they're at a decline in movie theaters because of the overall lack thereof of foresight of the movie theater industry. Everything's went to streaming, and we found out that streaming ain't exactly the end all be all. And so it's in a weird state where, like, movie studios aren't making as much money off of movies anymore.
Yeah.
And Lucasfilm's just making no fucking movies.
Well, at least they're not losing money on movies. They got that going for them.
You can't. What is the meme? You can't lose no money on movies if you never make the movies.
The meme.
Yeah.
So let's kind of theorize, right?
Yeah.
What happens if, first let's do the negative side of thing, the but sides of thing, as we would say over on the main show. What happens at Lucasfilm if both Mando and Grogu and Starfighter flop when they come out?
I don't know. I don't know. I think at this point, I'm to the point where I'm pretty much like not in an angry way. I'm buying into the let's clean the house, and that kills me
Yeah.
to say that. It really kills me because I love Dave Filoni, and I know that I'm gonna get some heat for that. And if you got some heat and you got some opinions and you're listening, and you want to tell me why you think that that's, please message me, because I'm not an arguing guy. Like, I want to hear your perspective. I'm a curious guy. That's what I am. So if you got a take that's different, go ahead and shoot it on Instagram for me. I'd love to hear it. But ultimately, yeah, if we're going keep like all the good, which means Charles Soule, everybody at the books, Dave Filoni, all of that. If we're talking like a total like bring it down, yeah, I'm there. I'm there. And I'm
That's what I
so
think.
there that I'm almost like there to like get it out of Disney's hands and put it into Apple's hands, because Apple has a fuck ton of money. Apple doesn't care about losing money on films because they only care that you have their streaming service. So Apple makes $100 or $150 million movies, throws them up on the streaming, not caring about like it being a movie for everyone. They just want to make good content because they have the money. And that's where I'm at. And that's where I'm at. I mean, I'm not saying specifically Apple, but I'm like either burn it down at Disney and restart, or burn it down somewhere else, but somebody with a fresh vision's got to get involved.
That's what I think. If
Because
those,
look at DC. DC was in gutters until James Gunn came out. And then I've been saying for 2 years, wait till Superman comes out. And DC's not as big as Marvel right now, but it's getting all this excitement and buzz on the internet. Everybody's excited for DC. And they
yeah,
hated DC. I've been a DC fan in the worst of DC. And so, like, I'm over here like, yay, you all get to see what I see.
you get it now.
But
Yeah,
that to being saying, you can clean up a fandom pretty quickly. And like to credit DC, James Gunn got ahead of it, like all the Snyder Bros. You know, Zack Snyder's movies. Like we much have a George Lucas. What is it? Not enthusiast, but he's the only one for them. What's that word? But anyway, these people who worship George Lucas now that he's gone, they're the same type of people as the people who worship Zack Snyder. Now, I love Zack Snyder's films. I think BVS is great. I love Man of Steel and I love Justice League. Zack Snyder had to go. But James Gunn, he has posted so many photos with Zack Snyder. He's given Zack Snyder work now that he's at Warner Brothers, and that is starting to go on the downcline because we're cleaning up this fan base and we're actively doing it. That's all we need.
yeah, and I think too, there's something in there about having the one head of everything that's actually the head of everything. You
And
know, and
Peter Safran. So James is a creative, and Peter Safran is technically a co-head of DC. You just don't hear Peter Safran because he's making the shit that James is thinking. So
yeah,
James talks to creatives, and Peter talks to the business. Kathleen, to be very clear, and that's not a bad thing, Kathleen is the Peter Safran when it comes to a Lucasfilm. She is the one who knows how to get shit done. Not recently, but
we just don't have a James Gunn. That's the problem.
yeah, yep. And that's all and we need somebody's both, because Kevin Feige, there's only one of them. I'm sorry. There's only one
Yeah,
Kevin Feige.
and I think that
Right now.
the potential of Jon Favreau being that is huge. Of Dave Filoni being that is possible. But if both of these movies, or honestly even one of them, flops hard, like I'm talking like worse than Solo. And mind you, Solo only really flopped because they doubled the budget, right? Like if it had been filmed once, it would have been
Make no
profitable.
mistake, yes. That was
Yeah.
and to be clear, the more I hear about that one, the more I kind of realize, even though I love Lord and Miller, that is the one of those movies that I've heard about where Kathleen had every right to fire him, because
Yeah.
they quite literally pitched a movie and then just didn't do that. Like that
Yeah.
is documented. That is everywhere. If you want to go look it up. It's there.
Yeah.
But I love Lord.
And so I don't see why we don't at Star Wars at Lucasfilm have this. And maybe it's because they have this idea that Lucasfilm is more than Star Wars, because you've got Indiana Jones and you've got like they did the Willow series and stuff like that. Let's call a spade a spade. Lucasfilm equals Star Wars.
Lucasfilm could still grow too, though. Like, that's another
Mm-hmm.
question for me. Is like, why did we just buy Lucasfilm for Star Wars? It's one of the greatest movie studios. Like, and George was cooking up, whether Willow got released or whether there was like scripts like Willow that never got released, George was always cooking. And Lucasfilm used to be cutting edge, and they still can be. And they can still come up with original ideas.
And that's the thing. Like, we don't have a cutting edge studio anymore, really, that gets like major publicity like the way Lucasfilm did back in the day. ILM did back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
Why not have Lucasfilm be that then? You know, like find the gaps and attack the gaps. You know, that's just basic, you know, business. It's basic philosophy. So, you know, maybe we need a James Gunn or somebody to come in and clean things out. But, you know, we had the guys from Game of Thrones that went to Netflix. We have now Mangold doing
Came out with an
this.
amazing show, by the way.
It's like, this has happened twice now, on top of all the firings, on top of everything else. And at some point, to change, something has to change, you know? And that's the thing. So what happens if both of these movies come out and are successes to whatever measure you think they need to be successes? Does the narrative change?
No.
That's kind of where I'm
unfortunately. Unfortunately, and I don't know where that leaves me. Because like it's just like, man, what are we doing here? And in a world where Marvel can bring Thanos, a purple chode of a person, like, and make him the greatest villain of all time, bro.
Oh, Vader's still the greatest villain of all time.
Yeah, Vader's the greatest villain, but what I'm trying to say is an obscure character that I didn't even know Thanos when that first like thing came out. And he has now become a major villain, and Marvel's done that. And I know we can do that. We can do that easily. We created, to your credit, we created the greatest villain with nothing on a movie studio budget and on a next to nothing shoestring budget, and George created Star Wars. You mean to tell me with $150 million you guys can't come up with?
I almost wonder if it's become like too easy, you know, where. Oh, sorry guys, my camera's falling here, so I'm just gonna.
It's okay, fix it. We're new to video. We get like 4 more weeks of being sloppy.
I know, right? So there's something to be said, I think, for when things are hard, you know, to do, and the benefit that causes. You know, you look at the greatness of A New Hope and everything that went into that, and I'm not saying people need to suffer like George almost dying, you know, from stress and stuff like that. But there was a lot of barriers there. You can look at Empire Strikes Back the same way. There was a ton of hiccups and stuff that went on there. Just like when you look at the history of movies, Jaws was a complete pain in the ass. And the reason you don't see the shark that often is because they couldn't get the thing to work right. It was supposed to show the shark more often. There's so many times you can look at movies and it's like when it was really hard to make and it wasn't easy, things turned out really well. And yeah, I'm sure there are an equal number of stories where that didn't turn out well, but the fact of the matter is we have these cultural zeitgeists, these Indiana Joneses, these Jaws, these Star Wars, because of what they went through. And I think that's really, really important, you know, and maybe shooting movies has become too easy where they don't have to face those creative challenges. And so that stops a lot of the commitment to the effort.
I think it's just an overall panic of, and this is not as much of a Star Wars question for me. I think as much as I think the film industry has just changed irreversibly. I was listening to a interview with Matt Damon the other day, and you know the term that people say all the time is like, why don't they make movies like the way they used to? And we just chalk that up as like old man banter, but like no, really, look at it. How many movies like Good Will Hunting have we gotten in the last 10 years? Well, and so he answers the question. He says, look, The reality is we all love streaming. That's great. He's like, but in 1998, we would be given, like, let's say we were given $50 million to make Goodwill Hunting. That's great. And
Goodwill
let's say,
Hunting's the redneck version of it.
yeah, hunting. Yeah. But he said we'd get like 50 million, and then if the movie only made 45, that's great because we still got distribution and people bought DVDs no matter what. They get bored and buy them. They didn't even know what movies they buy. They just buy them. And he's like, so when we lost distribution of physical copies because of the internet, it changed it because now we have to make movies on a level that we know everyone's going to like. And that's why you're seeing studios like Blumhouse, which is a horror studio. They're making a name for themselves because they don't want to be the big guys. They make $10 million movies and they make $100 million off of them, and they're happy with that. And they tell good stories. There's a way, but I just don't think Star Wars has figured out how do we tell stories that can be for everyone? Because let's face it, the Sith Wars is not going to be for everyone.
See, but
it can be.
They have. I think they have figured out how to make stories for everyone. Because
I don't think it works. That's what I'm saying. It's not personal enough. George used to tell, dude, we used to get mythology, and I'm sounding like a George guy, but like Star Wars was a statement every time a new one came out. We were telling about us as the human race, how far we've gotten on technology. We were telling a story, and we were building a mythology in the world. That's what a Star Wars story was. But don't forget that it used to make a statement on the movie industry. That's what it did. That's why it was big.
And we have, like, the thing that I think is the most conundrum-inducing of all of this, befuddling is the word I'm looking for.
Befuddling, okay.
Is,
my God,
like, we have figured out how to tell good stories. We have The Mandalorian. We have Andor, right? We have these things, but we're not able to build off of those. And that's the problem. You know, Tony Gilroy should have been given carte blanche to do whatever he wants in Star Wars for the rest of his life if he wants to. You know, Jon Favreau should be doing more than just the Mandoverse. Like, it's just simple. Like, it's 2 + 2, and I feel like they just can't figure it out. Of like, we figured out how to tell these episodic stories. I mean, regardless of which direction you go, whether you're pro Last Jedi or pro Force or Rise of Skywalker, like, most people will say 2 out of 3 of the sequel movies were pretty good. You know, if they like 1, they like at least 2. Some of us like 3. So they have figured out how to do it.
2.5.
They haven't figured out how to get stuff off the ground.
Yeah,
that's the problem. Once they get it off the ground, it's good. So I do have some
lately,
faith.
Yes, that is true.
Yeah.
That's a really good. It's actually a really good point.
You know,
outside
Ahsoka
of the
is
Acolyte.
great.
Well,
The
we can't count the
Acolyte
Acolyte. They learned stuff from that. That's a different release schedule. That's Chapek. You know what I mean? I'm willing to even give that a pass. Like, so yeah, I would agree with that.
No, and you're allowed a mistake every now and then, right? It's not it's the repetition of the mistake with this director situation and with the announcing stories that you then don't make that has become the issue. It is not the stories that they're making. Most people like most of the Star Wars shows that have come out, right? Some people don't like Obi-Wan. Most people don't like Acolyte. There are some, you know, who like all of it, you know? Some people...
How do you make one of your and I'm going to go back to use your analogy. How do you make one of your classroom kids that you know and have seen them do wonderful things, do great things even, for their age, for their time, whoever they are? You've watched them do things. But then every day they do stuff that is like, what are we doing here? Because the reality is, Andor came out and it's gold, and we're still talking about movies. Why? That's how bad this has gotten. Like, Andor is perfection. Andor is damn near leading TV right now, and I've watched a lot of good TV this year. And Andor's at the top of everybody's list. In a world where the final season of The Boys is coming out. Gen V, all these major shows that have been around for a minute now, they're all popping out, yet everybody's talking about Andor. In a world where we don't love blockbuster sci-fi to be the award winners at our Emmys.
Yeah. It won, what, 5 Emmys? Something like that?
So you can do good things. So what do you say to that?
Honestly, like, that's one of those conversations where You look at them and go, I love you, and you're not going to like what I have to say, and it's going to hurt your feelings. But I'm saying it because I love you. And then you go, do you not see the connection between your behavior over here and your outcome over here? Like, are you just missing that? Because if you are, then we need to really work on this. And most of the time, they're like, no, I know what's happening. I'm
And
making
I
a
was one
choice.
of those kids, so I know that they can do it because
Yes,
I was one of those
100%.
kids, was just
And
lazy.
nobody's
Putting.
having the hard conversations at Lucasfilm. That I think is very, very clear. Like, I think Iger had the conversation of we need to shift back to the movies, but there wasn't a conversation of, and don't make all these mistakes that you've made with the movies so far or you're done. Like that, there has to be consequences for actions, right? Both good and bad. And when there aren't consequences for actions, there's not learning that happens.
I want a dunce cap. I'm kidding.
Just dunce cap for everybody.
Dunce cap, Kathleen.
Oh my gosh.
I'm
But
kidding.
no, seriously, like there has to be, and when, I mean, personally, I would say like, the lives of children are more important than the millions of dollars, but most people would probably
1000%.
say, most people would probably go like, oh, a movie studio is a much bigger thing than a classroom. So let's go off of that, right? A movie studio is a bigger thing than a classroom, bigger deal than a classroom. So then why do I have more consequences in my classroom than you have for your billion-dollar movies? Like, that's
Thank
a
you.
problem.
Thank
That's
you.
a problem, our class motto this year is the standard is the standard. And it just means, we did a lot of great stuff. I started this journalism program last year. We did some really amazing stuff last year. And I didn't want people to come in and just drop off and say, oh, we've already accomplished all of this stuff. So we're holding the standard is the standard. What's the standard at Lucasfilm? Because right now it looks
What's
like
the mission statement?
Exactly. What it looks like utter chaos because you have all these successes, right? But they haven't built off of any of them. They didn't build off of Andor. They didn't build off of Ahsoka. They didn't build off Mandalorian until now when they're doing the movie. They haven't built off of High Republic except for a show that they completely just, dropped
Didn't
the
commit
ball
to,
on.
in my
They
opinion.
didn't commit to the High Republic of it all. So again, we've talked about this before, and I really hope that this has been an insightful conversation and not just sounded like the ones we've had before. Because I do think we've brought up some really important points, but it does come back to that axiom that we continue to grind on, which is they are making the same mistakes and they're not learning from their successes. It's like there's a lack of self-awareness at Lucasfilm that's really concerning. And that's the biggest problem, in my opinion. And maybe it takes Kathleen stepping down, or maybe it takes Bob Iger going, everybody's gone. You're all getting your papers. And thank you for your service. You're going to be a legend at Lucasfilm. We'll put you in the Disney, Hall of Fame, all of that stuff.
And
but
she will
your
be.
time is over.
Yeah.
She should be.
She should
Look,
be. She's
Kathleen
still a great
Kennedy,
producer.
She's a great producer. To everything that I've ever seen, she's a great human being. She treats people well. All of those things. This is not an attack on Kathleen Kennedy. It is an attack on the job that has been done, right? And we can't allow people just to have important jobs that affect people's lives just because they're a nice guy.
Yep. And to be fair, the movie industry has changed about 15 times since she was a major player.
Yes.
And I mean, yeah, no, guys. So yeah, she's still a major player, but I'm saying like in her producing, not running Lucasfilm, in her production, producing prime, the movie studio has changed about 3 times because it was in the 80s and Last Crusade, and then Jurassic Park, and then Phantom Menace, and now we got all this weird stuff with movie studios and algorithms. AI is like making everyone crazy right now. And it's just like it's changing so fast. Unless you are currently you gotta just be so quick with it. And why? I just can't understand how confusing it would be. One, at her age, she's not that old, but still, there comes a certain point where like how much changes can you be a leader for?
Yeah.
Can you endure? Like, I'm primed for, in my opinion, I'm primed to run my company for a minute now. My dad, if he stopped paying attention, which he did, he stopped paying attention to the stuff, he's no longer primed to run this company the way that I think it needs to be, because he doesn't keep up on websites. He doesn't understand marketing's changed. Everything's changed in
Yeah, it's
5
all
years.
changed.
It's different than it was in 2020.
And it's
So
going
it's
to be
hard.
different in 5 years from now. Like, everything is changing at a more rapid pace, and I don't question whether Kathleen Kennedy is capable of adjusting to those changes, because her track record has proven that she is. I question whether she has the drive to do it anymore.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, your reputation precedes you, and that's where I'm at in life, in business, and and I do fail at people all the time. I want to make that important. I fail every day as a leader. I fail every day, but I get the big stuff, and the big stuff is, even when you screw up on what you said or you didn't do something right, you always make sure it's right. And I mean, I just had a conversation with a decent client I'm trying to get. They have multiple buildings, and I want to be their premier painter when they want to do work. And we were talking about stuff, and price came up a little bit, and he's like, yeah, you guys were a lot higher than the other guys. And I just looked at him, I go, yeah, but you need something done. You need something on the job that we had done, but you need a correction, and I'm here at 7:00. You emailed me at 4:30 yesterday.
Yeah.
And I'm just a painter. Your reputation precedes you. Don't say you're going to make a movie with James, to bring it full circle. Just look, whatever you do, be a great leader. But don't say you're going to do something and then not do it. That's when people stop respecting their leaders.
And own it if you do it. I think this would be a different conversation if Kathleen Kennedy had come out and said something about James Mangold going to Paramount. That changes the narrative, right? To where she could go, yeah, we just could never really get it going. We both parted ways equally. Give us a rote statement like that.
And I'm a leader, man. I constantly have my pants down. Like, it's a lot of mistakes being a leader, but it's the ability to right the ship, to accept it, and being able to move on that truly makes you great. And I understand movies are hard to make, but you're in this position, man. Like, I'm not asking Brandon to paint my house.
Yeah, I would do a terrible job.
I would ask you to teach my kids. Sorry, but that's just what it would be.
And that comes to a final kind of closing point we can touch on, which is, do you have the experts in their field where they need to be? That's a question I have in the decision-making side of things. Are you putting people in places where they can be successful? And that's something I really don't know. And something maybe for another conversation, but it really is a wonder, and not in a good way, as to what's going on over there. That is not only allowing them to make these announcements and then them not follow through, but what's making these people who've committed to something so willing to walk away from the biggest franchise in the history of the world. It's bigger than Marvel. Let's just call it, Marvel will probably overtake it at some point, but right now Star Wars is the biggest franchise that has ever existed.
I'd have to disagree with you on that one pretty hard.
Well,
I think Marvel's got them beat on finance. Are you talking heart or financials? Because financials, I think Marvel's got them beat. I think. I don't know. But we'd have to look it up. Actually, that would be a great conversation sometime.
I was gonna say that's our next debate. Is which?
Yeah,
is
let's
better,
just get
Star
the
Wars
facts instead of debate on it. But yeah, either way, I know what you're saying, and what we're saying is why this juggernaut, this place that we love, this juggernaut film studio. What's going on, guys? That's all it is. Hey, are you okay? Is everything all right over here?
Everything okay?
We're just wondering. We love that Andor shit you gave us. It's dope. What are we doing? That's all it is. And it used to be much angrier a couple of years ago for me, and now it's not. But I don't know. So before we wrap up, though, I do want to point out one thing, though. It's but still, at the end of the day, you have to go back to Marvel because they're right down the street. They're literally right down the
Literally
street.
right down the street.
And it's like when you can put out a movie in 2019 that's got like, or maybe not that one. Let's just talk about Avengers. The first Avengers. You have 5 superheroes all together, aliens and a weird god. That's the movie. And it made all that money because they were a way to tell a story that would make the fans of the actual material be excited in an approach that everyone can like. And that's arguably what Disney does best. That's Disney's thing. Taking parents to go see kids' movies, but the parents like them too. That's the thing. That's what Disney does. They subliminally make everyone like it. Why are we having a problem here? I don't need the Sith Lord to cut somebody's throat. Like, I don't need you to do that. Like, just do something, like, commit to a story and commit to the story. It's much in the sense that I commit to my music.
Maybe that's part of the problem is, like, the lack of commitment to Disneyfy.
Because they're afraid to upset. Because everybody's angry, and I get it. It's a tough world. It really is. Everybody's pissed off. But at some point, Kathleen, you got hired, and this is what I tell my dad when we have a little bit of a business crisis, is like, you hired me to do the job. If you wanted to do the job, you can still do the job anytime, but you hired me, and I come with a different style, come with a different approach, different tendencies, different weaknesses, and different strengths. You hired you, Kathleen. Tell the story that you want to tell. Have you ever done that? If so, do it.
Yeah.
Whoever the creative is, man, I know you got the business sense because you got in this position. I know you know how to produce movies because you got in this position. Now fucking commit and tell your story because I want to know what you have. The next person at Lucasfilm, all I want from them is to do what they say and to commit.
That's fair. That's fair. I think that's...
Any final thoughts to wrap it up, or?
No, I think that kind of summarizes exactly where I'm at, is like, it's just the follow through. It's just the follow through for me. So
since we had, I love these conversations because I think they go deeper, and I appreciate that. And we're gonna get right back hopefully next week to the same fun stuff that we've been doing. But these conversations are important, and I would like to say again that if you listening want to have check out our Facebook group, give us feedback. Let's talk about it. This is why I like talking Star Wars. But on another note, yeah.
I was just going to say, we got an email sitting in our inbox at clashingsabersnetwork@gmail.com that once Lindsay and I record the next episode of Don't Burn the Sacred Text, we're going to talk about, because it came with takes, and, this is not the group of us that, record and put these videos and podcasts out that just want to have the conversation. It's for everybody to be a part of. And I know people say that and stuff, and shows say, all of that stuff, but like, genuinely, like, that's why this was started, was because there were not people having conversations like this where we could come at hard topics and really discuss it. And thankfully, like, that landscape has opened up quite a bit, but we still want to be that hub for people where you can come and share your thoughts. So get at us on Instagram, get us on TikTok, Blue Sky, our email, like I said, clashingsabersnetwork@gmail.com, the Facebook group. It's all going to be linked in the show notes.
And while you're doing that, why don't you tell us about some of the more positive things we do here at Clashing Sabers and why we are here?
So really, like, our big mission is, of course, our nonprofit, which is to put Star Wars, its mission is to put Star Wars books in classrooms across the country. And we do that, and we say that, and we follow through with that because of you guys, because of our listeners, because of our community, nominating teachers, donating to our Patreon, sharing out our content, stuff like that really makes a big, big difference. So if you know a teacher who needs books, or is just a teacher, because, like, let's just lift people up, like, don't worry about what they need, like, let's give them what they deserve, and go over to clashingsabers.net and nominate a teacher. We'll reach out to them and particularly find out what kind of books their classroom needs, and make sure that those books get into the hands of kids. And there are book bans going on around, especially I'm in Texas, it's happening all over the place. This is how we are rebelling. This is how we are fighting the good fight, is people are going to try to tear others down, and we're going to lift them up. And that's how we do that. And we can't do it without our patrons and without our community nominating teachers.
Absolutely. So please, any way you can, check it out. Even if you can't, share it. Like, share about
Yeah.
what we do. Word of mouth, last time I checked, is still the best form
It's
of
huge.
marketing. It is still the
huge.
best form. So even if you don't have it, we get it. But maybe share about it, talk about it, tell your friends about this fun conversation you had about guys talking about the movie studios and stuff. Let's have fun here at Clashing
Yeah.
Sabers. And with that being said, guys, thanks for sticking around. May the force be with you.
Always.